have that here, but I'm not sure what it is.
We all set?
Here they do not have it.
Yeah, unless that's some questions. We got enough for a quorum here, so I guess we're going to call this meeting to order. You ready for me, Sherry? Online? Okay. I guess we'll call this meeting to order. We'll take the roll call.
Here.
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 Okay. I guess we got a nice full packed crowd here. Anybody here for citizens time, or we got a few minutes here for citizens time if you need it? Okay. So I guess we can move on to a minute approval. I got to rely on you two since I wasn't here for last month's minutes. So if you guys could review that for me.
I reviewed them, and I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for meeting December 19th, 2012.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a second. Any discussions? Do you see anything wrong with it? Okay, then we'll take a vote on it. All in favor?
Aye.
I'll not, and I'll abstain. Aye. So, okay, so the minutes pass. I guess that takes us right into the certificate of appropriateness. We'll hit the 15004 Gotham Manor Place certificate of appropriateness. Are the residents here? Is there anything you want to speak about that?
No.
No? Nothing? Okay.
The packet I have that said it went to Planning Commission on 114, did that approve?
Yes.
Yeah, there's nothing I need to see. I've looked this over.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve the basic deck on the new home at 15004 Gotham Manor Place.
Okay. And I guess
I'll second it.
Second it. Okay. So any discussion?
No, my understanding is it is white, correct? The white with black balusters, okay. And specs? No, I'm fine.
Okay. If there's no discussion, I guess we can vote. All in favor?
Aye.
So, yeah. Passes. Thank you.
Good to go.
Okay, the next certificate of appropriateness is Sheets Rebuild. Do we have representatives for Sheets here? How you doing?
Gentlemen, welcome back.
Thank you. All right. I guess this is Alan from Sheets, Alan Stevens. I'm Rick Slater. I'm with Gordon, the engineer. And we're here to essentially submit our paperwork and get this process underway and hear your guys' comments and try and get your feedback and make sure we can try and work together and get it taken care of.
Okay. I guess we'll roll into discussion then. Motion.
Motion movement.
Okay. Second?
Sure.
You got that? Motion second? Okay. Okay, we'll go into discussion then. I was looking at it. You mentioned in here about the bronze pilings for the canopy.
Yes.
Is that the black color? Is that what you're calling bronze?
Yeah, it looks like. So
Okay.
a lot of the color that you'll see in the store is
bronze to dark brown. They call it bronze.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's
Looks black
dark,
to me.
dark bronze.
Yeah.
And it's actually
It won't be
what's
black.
out there too, right now.
Pardon me?
What's currently out there.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not exactly sure what color that is, but this is the. I asked the.
You know, the two concerns that were initially raised, at least from the last meeting we had, was the red color and the green colors. I don't really see any discussion of any changes to that in the COA here. What we want to do is try and get this conforming closer to our palettes, and I know that was discussed before.
Do you? And that's. I'm just trying to learn your process and how to do this because we take this stuff back to our committee. How do I take? Well, your color palette. If you have recommendations, how do I show that to our committee?
Okay, we try to
We had
base.
showed all of those colors on and given you I think it was Sherwin-Williams
Right.
paint palette, and showed you all that last week, and you had taken down those names.
Okay.
And
So is that online somewhere that I could pull those colors?
no,
Yeah,
I'm
we don't-
getting a no on that.
Pardon me?
They're
She
here.
has, she has
Okay.
them there, and I guess you can get them from
Would you need to go to a
Sherwin
Sherwin-Williams essentially and pick it up yourself?
I would sadly agree with that, probably.
Yeah, pretty much. We do not have any type of easily accessible public record that gives a list of the Sherwin-Williams names and colors.
Okay.
I think last month we had, both had put these right up to your drawings, and it was the habanero chili one that was, almost a dead match.
Just so I'm clear, and I hope I don't offend or anything like that, but if it's not the exact name, you guys are looking for the exact Sherwin-Williams paint.
No, we're looking for something of this type or compatible to it.
So-
You can usually take a sample in there, and they can pretty much, with the technologies nowadays, match it.
Okay. So when you say it's almost exact match, how would you, I guess, differentiate? Does that make sense? I'm not trying to get
Right, no,
anybody by any
understood.
means.
Right.
Now, if you want to come up and see, there's the one color in the color palette that is completely X'd out, that is not acceptable.
Right, so,
Which is this bright red. And on the drawings that you had come with last week,
I guess my question is, if, when holding this up next to each other, and they do look so similar that it's tough to differentiate, how does one
If it were
say?
really tough to differentiate, well then I guess it would be, again, close enough. But now I would think that any paint manufacturer worth their salt will be able to say, okay, this is Sherwin-Williams number,
Yeah, I'm not trying to.
whatever that number
step
is.
on toes or anything.
And
I'm
they'll
just trying to-
probably come, pretty darn close to it.
Okay.
and it was the question of, these are now black, and we wanted those to stay black, not red.
Right.
And that's the
that's
bronze.
That's
And
the
that's
bronze.
the
Right.
bronze.
Yeah.
And I don't think you guys have a problem with the bronze at all. right?
No.
So I guess, are you guys looking for more of a matte finish, I guess? Is that, I'm just trying to get the most
Yeah.
information possible so that we can.
It doesn't have to exactly be matte, but it needs to be not as,
As bright of
Bright
a red.
of a
We
red.
wanted something that's probably a little bit more on the hue text context would be darker or deeper or what.
right.
But the CVS, we tamed theirs down. They had a really, really bright red. And if you look how the CVS was turned down, that's kind of the gearing we're going to is something with a deeper color, not as bright of a metallic. I don't even know what that would be. fire engine red.
Correct.
Yeah, you see how these were like a fire engine red set of windows before, and we had them taper it down to our palette.
So that's all we were saying. It's
Okay.
not so bright red.
And just so I understand the process, so Rick submitted the information. Do you then send us like basically a report or a checklist on what,
Or comments.
or recommendations or things like that?
Well, under the approval, we can put the verbiage in here. We're looking for a red color similar to, and whatever we can agree upon here. I'm assuming you're trying to get this closed out tonight, or
No, I don't expect to close that tonight because there's obviously, this is obviously, this is what we like to have. So I need to go back and kind of talk to our committee and say, we're going to go with these canopy columns. I don't know if you had any other questions about the store itself. We covered a few things last time, but that's what I was kind of looking to go back with was, here were the items that were brought up were the concerns of the board, and to see how we could address those concerns.
yeah. Well, when it comes to the direct physical structure of the
Those are the
building,
pictures, the photographs
Yeah.
you had last week?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
I
the
was
same
actually,
ones in there.
you collected them at the end of last week.
Yeah.
Oh, no, man, I want to take those back. Oh, this is CVS. Now I'm looking at your
Yeah.
buildings.
Yeah, actually, I think these first ones are
No,
the.
that's what I was
yeah,
looking
the before and the surrounding.
This is
So
there.
yeah, these are the renderings, and then the next section will be the actual
Yeah, so,
photos of the current store, or I'm sorry, the similar stores, I guess.
And it was actually this one, the showstopper, that matched your renderings, very much so.
yes.
I thought it was the Avenir, but it's the
Yeah.
showstopper.
So it's slightly darker red, I guess. You're trying to, because I'm not, I'm an architect, not a paint person. So the colors are kind of escape me describing them. But I think what they're saying is not necessarily a matte finish, but it's just a darker,
Yeah.
slightly
It can be as glossy as
less
you want it to be.
bold.
I think what Alan needs tonight is information to go back to his,
Correct.
so they can talk about what they need to do and work together and make everybody happy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And the other piece was the neon greens.
Right.
Either going to the blue, like in the MTO sign, or even like matching your bronze, your dark bronze.
We talked about this piece too.
Yeah, we did.
Corners or whatever.
The cornice, yeah.
Because the greens in our approved colors are nowhere near your neon green.
Yeah.
I was
But
talking
you also go with the green if you
They
wanted
said
to stick with it.
in some stores they actually, well, in one or two stores they actually just didn't have an umbrella together, which you can do, but then obviously you lose the shade.
Correct.
So there's probably some other way to address the color of those.
I think that blue would be a...
Yeah, I think the blue would
That's a
stand
good
out much
choice.
better.
Yeah, as long as you, that's pretty close. And believe me, I know that like right now, you say, okay, well this is corporate. These are corporate colors. Like, oh no, we have to have. Well, CBS is doing the same thing. Oh, we must have this color. And the truth is, I mean, we're kind of arguing about the exact color. When you drive by, you can't tell. Like for example, Verizon a few years back, they had a bright red little check mark over top. You're familiar with the Verizon symbol. He had his sign person change it to one of the colors there. You drive by, Verizon red check over top of it, you don't notice it's not red, a super bright red one.
Now, So do you got a feel for the umbrellas then, what we're actually looking for?
Since you weren't here, we also talked about the cornice, perhaps a little more pronounced corbelling, maybe a little more in keeping with some of the other buildings, and also just the time period that we're talking about, a little more pronounced corbelling, something.
That is it's basically just a standing seam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's a little fall through there, basically.
Right.
But other than that, I think we were, pretty close, and we were okay with a lot of it.
Yeah, also, the canopy, there were discussions about if we could get some type of canopy look that was similar to the roof lines that you were proposing on the canopies here. I know, your skeletal structure is like this.
Exactly.
Can we get a skeletal structure that's something more like that, in which we can actually get something that's looking like a seamed roof sharp line as opposed to a curved line?
Yeah, that I have. Don't know about that yet.
Yeah, that's one thing that would be of interest to us, because this is more of the fingerprinted element that we seem to be throwing into all the surrounding architecture.
Hey, Rick took a picture here, and we probably talked about this before, but we're greatly decreasing the amount of canopy. There will only be one, and there will be no connection back to the store. So you'll lose this one, you'll lose this.
So the amount of red
Yeah.
would significantly decrease.
Right.
Would it have a yellow?
No.
base
No,
like this?
the
Okay.
yellow's
It'll be
gone.
one solid color.
Yeah, with the new sheets
Right.
look on it as well. If I had that, here we go, just like that.
Right, yes, that's all.
Yeah, and ours was just to angle that this way.
I think that you might have a problem angling it from that point. I don't know if you
But
could.
actually,
could you angle it from-
I've never seen us do that before.
Yeah,
I'll
obviously
talk.
they do that,
Yeah, the only reason I was saying that if you angle from that bottom point, it's going to have a hard time having your logo. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I don't know if you guys can angle from the radial points on the
Right.
chamfer, but I don't know if that helps with what you guys are trying to do. Or,
Yeah, because I know what you do is you have a metal structure.
Yes.
That's like that, and you are wrapping it around and stringing it with attachments along the metal structure,
Exactly.
all, and then you're just bolting it on.
Yeah. They have.
So,
Is that
yeah,
back
I
there
don't
somewhere?
so even for the
just to work
roof.
it out if you
Yes.
do sharpen it down.
Well, you have a. There you go. Yeah, you're exactly. This is what. That's what you're referring to. Where they have this actual. Oh, okay. Right.
My understanding that the logo is here,
Right.
along the long face of, so it doesn't need to have a flat piece. And then either,
That's something Alan would still need to talk to his group about, is whether they can do that straight, fillet as opposed to the chamfer. But I mean, I think they need, correct me if I'm wrong, Alan, but I think you'd want to have that
Flat face.
flat
Yeah,
face so
that
you can
flat.
get the actual
yeah, 'cause that has to fit.
logo on it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they have to put a separate sign, that actually props up away from
Right.
the slope.
Okay. But you could play with that a little bit, see what you might be able to come up with. That'd be of interest to us.
Okay.
That's pretty much all I had at this
Yeah,
time.
so
Did you
we-
guys have anything that you wanted
No,
to add?
so,
I really like the way you put your trash bin enclosure in
Okay,
there, and
yeah.
the solid door that you put on
Yes.
it. That's a hell of a lot better than
Yeah.
that
Oh,
mesh
Yeah.
fence with the
We were actually just
nylon
talking about that
ribbon
earlier.
through
I
it.
was like, that actually looks a lot nicer.
That's much better.
yes, but as I recall, this is a, a similar one thereof. The one that you're showing, I think it's in here, isn't it? The trash can enclosure.
Well, that's
Yeah,
that's
it's
what
in
we're
here.
proposing.
Exactly,
proposing.
but I just, the one that you have drawn, this is a similar one. The one that you are proposing is of such a proportion that I was
The site layout, you mean?
questioning, yes.
It's
It's,
back here.
here we go, here we go. Is this much more similar to it?
Size-wise, I mean, I think it's more
Size-wise.
along there. I mean, if you look at the site
Plus,
layout,
plus it's in back now. It's actually facing the.
Correct, but we don't know exactly what else is going to be happening back there. I mean, right now it's kind of a back alleyway, but what you're seeing stuff's happening in that industrial area behind, it's becoming more commercial, more populous, people going to it.
it's probably about 25 feet wide as we have it proposed.
Again, I don't, hold on,
I wish we had something.
Why don't you take the easel that's there and turn the little map thing around and put them on one side, put them on the other side? You got an audience at home, you have an audience here, that has no idea what you guys are talking about.
But
This
we
is true.
truly
That's
don't
kinda
have
why we're here.
any large pictures though. If you
But
can.
at least if you can put it on one side or the other, we can at least see something that you're talking about versus the backs of two gentlemen who are applying for the thing. You have an audience at home and here that you have to somewhat entertain even though you're doing business.
Yeah.
I mean, I can throw
Of
this.
course, we don't exactly have anything to put on the easel, though. All we can do is reference them to the
I can
ARP
go ahead and put
package
this up
here
there.
tonight.
Go right ahead.
If you leave the easel on one side of the platform or the other.
Have a alligator clipper in there.
Here's the dog here. Pull it up.
Okay.
Got it, Rebecca.
surprise.
Did that work? Thank you. This is a site layout.
Thank you.
In case you guys were interested.
You are.
This is, that's one of the colors they're proposing before. We've talked to them about changing that to a blue to match their MDO sign, or MTO sign. What's that?
Because you're going to trash the light out there.
Yeah. Go ahead. What were we? Oh, yeah, actually, what I was mentioning was that just, I've seen some similar ones just driving around that have a center pier, brick pier to match the sides. A center pier, again, not being a sanitation engineer, don't know what the minimum requirements are to have double doors
For the
as
transfer
opposed to.
or for the dumpster?
Correct.
I think it depends on the size.
Correct. So I'd be interested that if it's large enough to have two smaller doors as opposed to one super large door with perhaps a center pier in the middle, that would visually cut down that.
I think the
massive
center
door.
pier in the middle, and I'm not trying to dissuade
Right,
you,
right.
but I think the center pier in the middle would detract from the actual unloading.
Well, exactly. I mean,
So-
if it was a functional thing, you could say, well, it won't function properly.
Right.
Well, then I would understand that. But as it is right now, if 6 1 half a dozen of the other
Right.
with function, right now it's just one really large door.
Well, if you look at the site layout, which is in that package,
Yeah.
which is in the back, it actually shows the dumpster with the French doors, if you will.
Correct.
For the opening, the two doors opening outward.
Correct.
Versus the one door. So this is what she's
Well, right, but
proposing right
when
now.
I say one door, yes, okay, two doors opening out, of course, but it's still, when they're closed,
It appears as one.
one large mass of brown.
Okay.
So, again, if your, people who deal with this thing say, hey, it's not a big deal, we have two separate dumpsters, then it wouldn't be a big deal to put a pier. I would love to see a pier in between them. If they say, hey, we just can't do it,
Okay.
yeah.
And it looks like you're moving all your pumps up front.
Yes, they are.
Now, does that give you a set of 2 pumps more? Is that a 10 pump?
It does give more pumps.
Wow.
Because right now you have 4 fueling stations in each location that have one on each side. So, I mean, it's
Okay, it's only 4. I thought it was 5. So you actually get 4 then. Huh?
exactly. Well, you got 4 here. So yeah, you get 4
Well,
additional
4 extra.
ones.
Yeah.
So 8 additional fuel.
For a total of 8 additional
Right.
service.
Yes, sir. And like we said before, we're reducing the canopy, but increasing the fueling stations. So there will be less visual red everywhere in terms of the canopy, but you'll still have that functionality of the additional fueling stations. Hopefully they'll cut down on some of the flights, right?
And we were a little, I believe we were straight. We were asking last time whether the canopy is curving as well. It is curving?
Well,
there's just the front.
A radius on the curve,
Yeah.
right, okay, so it is.
But it is still that wire structure frames.
Okay. Anybody have any other things about the building and the canopy itself?
This is basically the first time that I've seen it, because I did not make the last meeting. The canopy is going to cover how many of the pumps?
All of them.
All of it? Okay.
It's
But it won't connect, you won't have a covered walkway back to the building.
right.
So
It
if you
will.
look at it now, if you look at,
Here you go.
And see, that's what I guess I like, is to be able, that in bad weather, you're completely covered going from
Well,
the
you are on the
bed.
pump,
Well, you are, but
but
you
if you,
can't,
if you wanted to go into the store,
Oh, that's well,
This will essentially go away. From the pumps to the store.
and see, that's what I like. Because if it's bad weather, they're not gonna be, people aren't gonna wanna get out and
well,
get.
right, but it drives me crazy when people park at their pump to walk into the store. So, you know, that's what these parking spots are all about here. And so you're going to get wet getting out of your car anyways if you park in a parking spot that they have.
I think one of the
There's
main
not
reasons, correct me if I'm
That's
wrong,
not
Alan,
covered.
that they're reducing that is visual. I mean, you know, to go in your guys' direction of reducing some of
yeah, and really, the main reason is, as we move more to the food business, kind of separating fuel from store.
Yeah, you're
and there's-
you're
how many-
offering a more inviting
parking spots?
environment by having the parking around the building instead of having them park outside in the perimeter
Right.
and having to walk through the gas pumps. I understand that. The only other question we really have to address here, I guess, is the signage. We have not dealt with the main marquee sign, but I'd like to get some consensus on that. To me, it's an improvement. It brings it closer to our code. It doesn't exactly meet it directly, but still, it's a lot closer than what it is. So I need some comments on how lenient we want to be.
the section just before.
there you go, right there.
Yeah. I mean, it's smaller than the original sign. It's broken up. This isn't all one big piece with a bar on it. I mean, it does help it out. The colors, of course, those are their print colors. I'm assuming that if we're going to taper down the red here, is this a standard stamped color that you're restricted to because of the plastic?
I would think that it would be.
Well, you know, the plastic manufacturer only has a set of colors that, you know, if you remember trying to buy prefabbed roofing for some of the metal houses,
Right.
you know, you were limited to what true color of red you could find.
Well, let's make a real honest effort to have it match. And if they say, hey, it's just not out there, we'll consider it then.
Right.
Alan, do you know the answer to that question?
No, that's a good question. I assume it's very close to the same color the canopy is. It's just a color that we use for our brand. So I assume that, I'm just assuming.
I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like if you could do some investigation on what your color options are from the plastic manufacturer you're using for this. That would really help us out. Don't I wish? And I just don't understand you. I go to the Waterloo sheets as well as the Haymarket sheets, and you guys can't seem to agree on prices between them. They flip-flop. One's lower for one time, and then the other gets lower. You don't want to keep it going at the same amount difference between the two. Flip-flop.
Is that auto diesel, is that a universal color for diesel
Green, yeah.
I
vehicles?
believe so.
I believe so. You see a lot of.
Yeah.
No, I do, that's what I'm
Diesel's green,
asking.
yeah.
Okay.
That'd be more Alan's department than mine.
'Cause it is like
that
yellow
way,
green.
I believe you're right, because the people just see that and then we have, some places, we actually have, it's called a high flow diesel. People that have
Right.
those triaxles, they have bigger tanks. We're not putting that here. This is just the auto diesel.
'Cause, I mean, the only reason I say that is because it's only green.
Yes.
Hopefully, we get rid of, we jettison the canopies, then, or the umbrellas
Right.
as green, then that would be the only green. But if I can see it, if it's a universal language that motors know, then I'd be all right with it. Okay.
Okay. Let me see. What'd you call the?
Umbrella.
So, yeah, the cornice, exactly. Top of the
And
parapet,
what
top
would
of
you
the
like
parapet
from-
wall, which your terminology you want to use there. Cornice, top of the parapet wall.
I think either one we understand.
Cornice
Okay.
review. Umbrella color.
Just trying to cut down perhaps on the large aluminum cap. You know, I mean, obviously, a cap's nice to keep the water out, right? But yeah, we just have some more innate core boring.
I think Alan
That
is,
would,
you know, willing to try to work, you know, as much as possible with, you know, what needs to be done.
That'd be
So,
pretty simple, yeah.
whether he can or can't, I don't know.
Okay, any concerns about the signs? I haven't really asked for any discussion with anybody else.
I actually like the sign stuff.
We're all okay with it.
Okay. Here's what I pulled away. What I pulled away from our conversation, we went to try to get a red that's closer to our palette. Review the cornice to see if there are any other options we can do with the cornice of the rooftop, right? The
The angle
building.
of that.
Put that in. The umbrella color, see if blue can be done. Evaluate the curve on the canopy, see if there's something that might change it to fit better with the elements that we have within our area. The curvedness is definitely an element that doesn't fit in. And what color options we have for the signage. Did I miss anything?
Yep.
Okay.
And if I'm understanding correctly, the signage, the color for that, you'd like it too closely as possible match.
Canopies
Yeah, if
and,
we
roofs
taper the
and,
red down to a deeper red, if we could get something that might come closer to matching it, that way it doesn't kind of like look out of place. But like I said, most likely what you're going to do is call your plastics, the person who manufactures it, and says, give me a color palette of your plastics that you have the options. And, at that point, we'll have to say, well, out of these three reds, this is the best fit.
Okay. So essentially, we can bring back to you what they can provide. And
Yes.
Any samples would be great.
Right, but I would just say that if they can't come, too terribly close to the other colors we discussed, we still want those other colors on the rest of the building.
the blue.
Yeah, no, and the
tapered red.
darker red. In other words, if they can't come back with a darker red,
For the signage.
so be it. We want the darker red everywhere else. Okay.
that make
Okay.
sense?
if it's something they need to discuss.
So did I miss anything? Okay, what we'll do is we'll draft up a letter for you that highlights all the stuff that we discussed here. Can I work with you on that, Sherry? We'll get that out.
Can I give you a copy of the colors out of our Sherwin-Williams
Yes, sir.
approved colors?
I'm sure you get that on.
Okay. In the meantime, what we're going to do is, since we do have a motion for the COA, since it is a full package, I recommend that we table it till another meeting that you guys want to bring back what you feel your best and final would be. What date do you think that would be?
We'll try for next month.
For next month,
I'll
so-
make sure let me make sure I can get all the information put together for you. We'd like to try for next month.
Okay.
And I'll let Sherry know when everyone lets me know. Yes. We're shooting for next month, but if it can't happen, I'll let Sherry know as soon as we. Yeah, if that's okay.
Okay. Do you have any examples that you would like to forward them on that?
I can look, but I don't
Okay.
know off the top of my head.
So you can wing it.
We took pictures of CBS, lots of them, especially after last week.
Yeah, okay.
And next meeting, so you have a date, February 20.
Okay, so the recommendation then is to table this till the next meeting. I don't know if we need to amend your movement or not, or do we just vote on table? How do we do that? What's the procedures? Okay.
I'll make a motion
Anybody?
to table the Sheets rebuild to the ARB meeting, February 20, for further discussion of discussed items.
Okay, I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion on it? Are we good with tabling? Okay. I guess we got to move to vote. All in favor of tabling this till next month, or should we say revisiting it pretty much, but tabling it till next month, I'll say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes.
See you guys on the 20th.
I hope we gave you enough for feedback.
I think that
And feel free to
And like I
contact.
said,
I don't
I'll
think
be
that-
getting
I don't
something to you via email, or what would you prefer? Do you need an official letter or email?
Email's fine.
Email's fine. So I'll draft something and we'll
email
share on that.
that's who the information is on the certificate.
And feel free to contact beforehand if you have any questions.
Okay.
We are available.
Oh,
Did you need me to
sorry.
talk anything more about the sheets?
No, this is not.
Sheets, no, probably McDonald's. I'd like to adjust the agenda and move McDonald's up so we can take care of them. I guess I need a motion to modify the agenda. No?
Let's,
Okay. We'll go right to McDonald's then.
just for a second, I'm sorry, but this book's right here. Okay. There you go.
Just watching the fun.
Oh, yeah. Enjoyable.
We were here Monday, too.
Okay. Well, at least we have something we can put up for the McDonald's.
He's got a big board too.
Oh, cool.
Rock on. Thank you.
Although I probably will blot out the sun like the engineer has there.
Okay. We're ready whenever you are.
Thank you, Roger Bowers, on behalf of McDonald's, and Robert Goldman, who's our architect here as well. We had the pleasure of appearing in December with initial renderings of a rebuild in place for this store, and received some comments. I appreciate the minutes. I've gone through those and the comments, and Robert was able to try to incorporate some of those comments into a modification of the design to do a few things. And I apologize. I'm a real estate person, not an architect, but and so Robert can fill you in if you have specific questions or talk about the concept. But what we heard is to try to take the design and incorporate some of the elements of things that are existing in Haymarket, and also because we're on in the industrial district and on the edge, to look across the street to CVS, to look at what Sheetz was doing with their new design next door, but also keeping in mind the shopping center that we sat on the front of, and to try to incorporate some of the elements of things that were turn of the century and Haymarket to what is McDonald's purpose in redesigning the building, into bring a fresh new look that is in keeping with their some of their signature style elements that they bring to the site.
Now, I know, I don't know what type of agreements are with, you have with Lee-Berry. Have you talked with Lee-Berry? And
we have. I've not done it personally. McDonald's works back through the real estate department, which is not outside counsel there, and they have gotten approval of the landowner for the initial design that we had proposed. I believe that when we have gone through this process, we will need to go back to them and show them our modified design, but that we had gotten indication from our folks internally that they had received the landowner approval to move forward.
okay. I guess Marchant is out with Sheetz right now. I wanted to kind of get an input of what discussions have gone on between the two of you, so that we're not repeating ourselves. Or
no, and you're welcome. I met with him for the first time on Monday at lunchtime. We sat down, we talked through the process. There's a number of different moving pieces for this site. The first is that on the land use side is that it is a drive-through, and so we'll need a special use permit application, and that will be submitted when we formally submit for a certificate of appropriateness. We will also concurrently submit for the special use permit on the drive-through. And there is an ordinance change that is being considered with regards to the drive-through. Previously, the drive-through had a requirement of not more than 6 stacking spaces, and Marchant allowed us how the recommendation or the movement on the board is to change that to at least 6, which is more in keeping with what we see in drive-throughs everywhere. Usually we have a requirement of 10 or 11 spaces in the drive-through.
Right. Has he discussed any signage
We did.
concerns or anything like
We
that?
did, and that's also part of our, we understand for the signage that we come before you folks for the look of the signage. We also go through matching up with the signage ordinance. And presently on the building, we were just going through the file in the back of the room. I apologize, but I appreciate the time. There are 3 existing signage conditions. There are 2 McDonald's 2-foot by 13-foot lettered internally illuminated signs on the short sides of the building, when it's facing the entrance way, and then also facing Sheetz. It would be those are legally non-conforming signs, being internally lit signs that were approved as part of when that store was built. And we're going to discuss the rest of the signage when we go through the design, but our request on signage would be that as a legally non-conforming, the one on the backside that faces Sheets be taken down and put up in the same position on the building, the same sign put up in the same position on the rebuilt building. The one on the I'll call the front of the building does not meet with the new design. Robert's design has the arcade feature there, and so that sign would go away, and that would be for the grandfathered signs. There is an existing variance for the menu board. The sign ordinance does not provide for menu boards, and so in 2000 they obtained a variance for the menu board that is out there with the brick columns. And at present, we would need to request for a second menu board. We have our proposal on the site plan is to put in a side-by-side drive-through instead of the stacked dual ordering station that's there now. To much more, McDonald's in the last probably 3 years has moved in many locations to the side-by-side ordering, and that's a lot more efficient. It gets people through a lot faster, and each person has their own menu board in that arrangement. So we would be requesting approval for a second menu board as part of our application. And what Marchant mentioned to me is that the council is considering menu board ordinance changes so that we should see how that comes out as well, or alternatively, if we get to the situation where our request is not approved, then we would need to go through the variance process again for a second menu board.
Yeah.
And then lastly, there are directional signs on the site which were approved through the process back in 2000 that we would not be changing, and that would only be affecting the footprint of the building, and then in the back, the drive-through area would be a change in the laning.
Right. The reason I brought up the signs is because I just wanted to make you aware that we can discuss the aesthetics of them, but the true approval of the sign goes through the planning commission.
Yes, and he did make me aware
about that.
And along that lines, we have on the signage that we have on the elevations is not yet corresponded with what we are doing with our full signage. In fact, they are the same signs, I believe, but we'd like to discuss them. But we understand that they will need to move around. As I mentioned, the McDonald's were the only place that we could use that existing sign is right where it was on the back side of the building at the drive-through side. And then the other signage that we show, so the McDonald's that is shown as part of the arcade on the first rendering, and then the McDonald's that is shown over the drive-through on the back side of the second rendering would not be where we would be proposing in our formal submission the location of those signs. We do, in terms of signage considerations, the M logo on the front arcade and the M logo on the side on the entrance arcade there are ones that we are proposing in terms of the look, and that is that's a standard size logo M that McDonald's asked us to have on that design.
Okay. Well, if you want to go over what design elements you have here, what you favor more. I don't know what type of dialogue you're looking for tonight, if it's strictly for more direction, or if you actually want to kind of discuss what you're proposing.
I kind of feel like we're taking a moment and coming back to the first time. One thing I'd like to modify that you said a little bit, Roger, is that this is not a rebuilding place. This is just a remodel. So while we are doing some construction of some minor walls, we're not tearing things down and rebuilding them up. This is a facade remodel and an interior remodel. So the actual amount of construction is minimal, which limits some of the things that I can do. As you probably know, when we first came in, I brought in the traditional design for this rebranding program that McDonald's is involved in. And then we met, and I gleaned some information. And I went back to the drawing board, and again, using some of the tools that I'm allowed to use in the design of these projects, I am coming back and for your consideration, presenting this revised design where we're maintaining parts of the existing roof, modifying them to a standing seam roof, similar to some of the elements that I saw in some of the photographs that were presented to me when I was here before. Modified the lighting, broke out of the color palette that is available to me as a standard palette that McDonald's, one of the standard palettes that McDonald's provides, and was able to get some nod of approval from McDonald's. But I'm coming back here to kind of get your input. Are we going in the right direction? Frankly, I have not been zeroing in on the existing sign ordinance and some of the more fine issues about the signs. I want to get to the major architectural items to see if we're moving in a direction that's going to be consistent with what you're trying to do. So yes, I would like some feedback so I can try to respond as I can.
This is what they have now.
Yeah.
That was last week.
Well, I do like the roof that you put in. That does at least draw in the elements of Lee Berry. Even the goosenecks give it a kind of a homey feel. Question with those, would those be strictly for decoration, or would you actually be trying to light the
Light up the roof.
No, actually, we do use them. They create a little bit of a scallop along the wall and then down over top of the shed roof. Mm-hmm. And so at night, it's a very nice effect. So yeah, those are not just sitting up there during the day. Those are working lights.
Okay. Before I take it over, I'd like to get some feedback from some of the members here. What ideas do you have? What likes, dislikes do you see with this design and changes that might help influence or enhance some of the existing architectures that are around?
I definitely like the improvements that they did and came back with, especially with the roof line. Mm-hmm. And the gooseneck I do like. The arcade is still a little, I don't know, squared. Yeah. I'm not sure how really to put that. It's just a little too...
A little squared, a little too clean cut, clean lines.
Well, it looks like they've toned down the yellow. It's not real bright.
Actually, there was no
Or is
intent.
this just-
There was no intent yet to modify the change of the color of the yellow.
I think they just did the shadows.
It's the shadows of it.
I
Beautiful.
like this better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't
I
want
like
to
the
mislead you.
tone
I
down.
don't want to mislead you. That was not a change.
Okay.
Yeah, well, do you have some comments?
I appreciate some of the things you've done. From a functional standpoint, the awning is very nice. I mean, I've been out to McDonald's plenty of times when it's pouring rain and you're having a nice cover to walk to the front of your car so that you can then bolt to the door of your car is really nice because obviously the first proposal you had doesn't have that at all. The goosenecks are nice. I'm interested to learn more about and get a better feel of what they will look like. If McDonald's has done this in the past, or if you have examples where these goosenecks are lighting up the roof, I'd be interested to see it because I mean it looks good, in the day, but what exactly it's doing in the evening, I'd be interested.
Wall-mounted goosenecks this way are not standard. So this would be. I would do a rendering of to try to.
I see. I like the added brick. You've lost the parapet wall, the siding on the parapet wall for the most part. Not exactly sure why you've left some of it. like over the drive-through, and on the opposite side of the building too.
Yeah, does that wrap all the way around?
That wraps from the rear of the, I'll call it the side entry.
Mm-hmm.
It pretty much wraps around to where the,
Yeah, because the two renderings we have, we don't get to see the backside of it, so I don't know if that goes all the way
I
around.
apologize for that. I can certainly provide that next time. There's a change in plane, and so we brought this all the way to the change of plane.
Yeah, I noticed the original concept you had didn't have that change in plane.
Correct.
I think that
I actually like that bump out. That gives it some detail. I mean, it pops it out.
But isn't what's happening though is that the roof is actually pushing back, correct?
What happens is, I don't know if I should give away all the secrets of the magician, but what happens is this is the existing structure of the roof that's there
It
now.
ends right there.
And so what I'm doing is I'm building a parapet wall at the cricket of where the double mansard is. And that changes, that occurs at a different plane relative to the lower plane of the building.
Right.
Okay, and the proportion, and I do it that way because to get this proportion, if it remains in the same location as it would have with that scheme, the proportion of this is terrible.
Very small. Right.
Right, so I keep that back, and that's what causes that.
Great.
Okay. And just so you know, this is not brick.
I was wondering about the structure. Yeah, because
This
you
is
can't
not
support
brick.
the brick.
If it was brick, if it's required to be brick, let me know. I can do it in a thin set, but I can't structurally do it as a full normal. But this was the same driving as we had proposed in the previous scheme.
Okay. Yeah, I was reading that as brick, indeed.
Well, when you said I was going to let you know that's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is that?
Let's drive it. Yeah, stuck
What's dry? Stucco?
Now, I can do it
Okay,
in thin set brick.
But it can't be a
I
synthetic?
can do it in thin set
set?
brick, and we painted it. It's very hard to tell the difference. It's a structure I can't get the loads to work out.
Yeah.
The eyebrow, that's definitely something that I don't see fitting in. A concept that I was thinking of, maybe you would want to extend the line of that bump out of sandstone or whatever that stone is, and having that kind of contour like the eyebrow, and putting a drip cap that kind of hangs over and gives that look. That might be a little bit better, but that is standing, as a separate element. I don't think really falls in. That really starts to drive the look of this as being totally outside what's around.
I will tell you that about 2 years ago, that came up in a meeting in another state. And we were flat out told that I'm not allowed to do that with the stone. So we have to come up with something else. Now, just so you understand, I am I'm a representative
Right.
of a corporation. There's certain things I can do, and there's certain things I can't respond to.
Yeah. Well, integrating this in the building allows you to keep it, but at least subtly hides it from, when it's sticking up as it is, it gives it that futuristic arch that just doesn't fly within our town concept.
So what you're saying is to make a shape out of what we call a stone arcade that somehow mimics an arch.
Well, I was thinking, you could pretty much extend it up to like the height that you're seeing this now, and make the wall, or you don't even have to make the wall that shape. You can kind of mimic like a drip cap on top of the stone with this, and of course have it hanging over enough to give you that look. But at least that builds it into the building. It doesn't keep it like this hood ornament.
Hey, I have a quick question along the same lines, though.
That's just one
in
concept.
Manassas, their drive-through has these swooshes, the dry actual cover to the drive-through
Okay.
that keeps rain off of you is this yellow swoosh. Is that the concept that you have planned for us?
Yes.
There is in the drive-through, the post and the cover over where people are ordering, so they're not
Correct.
being rained in the windows.
And the cover
It's-
over is a yellow,
And
bright yellow
It's
swoosh.
a yellow element, yeah. I mean, it has a yellow color.
And what is the term that the corporate uses for this?
That's a roof cap element.
The roof cap element is much more boring than swoosh.
Somebody else has got that name.
Yes, I know. unfortunately.
Eyebrow.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I appreciate much of what you've done, although I'm also feeling it's falling short of some of the things that the town is looking for, because in many ways the changes you made are very subtle, which I like the changes, but I think they're almost too subtle. I still see when I'm looking at this, I still see, McDonald's all across the United States. Every single pit stop off the highway, there's the McDonald's. And again, that's what the bean counters at corporate are looking for. I understand this. I appreciate that, but it's not what the town is looking for. So, I mean, the incorporation of the stone, I don't see such a problem with, but I would love to see some sort of I don't know, a corbel, something at the top that sets it off with a nice, clean,
I can-
modern, mid-century modern, clean line.
I can try to get some kind of molding for the top of that. Some kind of
Okay, something like that, because I mean, it's right now, it's something very, again, like mid-century modern is what comes to mind. It's very rectilinear, very planar. That's what she was saying. The very planar look, which I appreciate. That's what McDonald's, the corporate guys, are looking for, but we're not. He wants to work with you with the cornice detail. I don't like it at all. I just think it just, especially since you're going to have it over. I mean, I assume I have less issue with it over top of the drive-through. You'll have that yellow line, free-flowing line over the drive-through, and so now it's going to be repeated up here. I'm having some
I
serious
just don't get any
issues with it.
visibility. I don't get any faraway visibility from it when it's the functional canopy or the drive-through. It's much smaller. It's much lower. And it's a thin yellow band.
For the drive-through. Yeah, I'm familiar. I mean, again, I'm familiar with it. I took note of it at some of the other locations.
You get plenty of visibility when you're driving under it, but not when you're driving down the street.
But yeah, I mean, I would like to see again. I'd like to see some props, some corbelling. Although I was going to say over the brick, but you just mentioned that it's not brick; it's stucco at the moment.
I might be able to, if I do go to, a presentation with a ThinSat, I could probably get a little bit of a detail around that top, maybe pop it out a little bit.
As opposed to, because I think what we were saying, again, just we're trying to move away from the clean rectilinear
Well, in my mind,
shapes.
in my mind, one of the things that you said the last time we met was if this was an older building and you guys came in and topped it, so that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to make the base of the building look like it had been here for a while, that the whole rectangular box was here with a shed roof and some lights hanging off of it, and then we came in and kind of cut the shed roof and put an entry arcade and cut it over here and put this here, and then built up the back a little differently, that it would have that kind of older building modified with some newer elements on it. That's what
And I can see that, and I appreciate that. I do. I'm just wishing to go a little further.
Just one more.
Just a little bit further.
One
You
more.
took a great baby step, and it's like, why don't I take you a little further? Again, I'm sorry. Can you remind me? You addressed it. I kind of am still a little lost. Why is this area over here not brick?
Well, for starters, right now, it works well with the canopy that's over the windows. Okay, I could show it to you without. When I say over the windows, I mean the drive-through windows.
Oh, the drive-through windows. Okay, I don't
Right,
think
see
I
right
have
below,
that.
when you're looking at it, where you see the
Oh.
silver, there's, those windows, that window and the
Correct.
one back there, right. So that's when you're driving through, you're protected from the weather.
Right. No, that's great.
Yeah, and that's, we usually use those two things together. I can show it to you without,
Okay.
and maybe that's fine.
No, so but yeah, but then it would be a large brick wall.
Then that's the problem.
A large brick.
That's the problem. But if I get some
Although,
brick detail
yeah,
on top
if we
of
could
it,
do some corbelling, as I was trying to challenge Sheets to do.
I don't know if I can do true corbelling with that, but I can do something that maybe will change the plane of it. So it'll be some brick detail.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm interested. I mean, I think corbelling would be the right answer right there. But again, I'm interested to see what you can do. Now, what are you proposing this material is right now?
It's a corrugated metal.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think I'd rather see some sort of interesting brickwork. And of course, the drive-throughs go good with the drive-throughs are. They're very functional. I'm almost not
Yeah.
worried about the drive-throughs because they're a very functional thing, and people just accept that's what it is.
Yeah.
I'm much more interested in the actual building and.
Well, I'm also looking at the trim on the back piece on top. What is that? Is that just like a corrugated metal? Or?
Oh no,
said.
yeah. So we just talked about this is a corrugated metal. That's exactly what it is.
Right. That's not.
I'm not
I
excited to see.
can play with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was wondering. I like the accent. I mean, it does give it some type of accent, but I don't know if metal really fits in.
I'm not.
It would be nice to try to bring in the roofing element of the Leeberry complex, but I don't know how well like a slate shingle look would go on a vertical plane. So I don't really know if that would go, but I would like to play with some type of other materials for that accent.
Why don't we let me play around with brick?
Okay.
Because who knows? Maybe I'll drop a stretcher course in or a string of course and then something that's protruding at the top, and that'll.
Okay, I'd like to see that. Yeah, I mean, because you're right. The risk we run is that it won't be bold enough. It won't be enough of a core. I keep using that word, and then it'll just look like a straight brick wall, and so we'll actually lose. But yeah, if you can again just try to come up with something with the brick, some type of. Yeah, I mean, just a soldier course. I'm wondering if that'll stand out enough. That was my issue.
Yeah, I don't think it would.
What about incorporating this little water table band board here, which I guess is sandstone type of concrete?
I think it's something that's there now.
Right.
That's not something we're adding. That's there now. But I
Okay.
could,
Yeah, I mean, I was just wondering if something, a larger piece of it or something. I mean, I'm not suggesting the whole slab of it, but I would
Something to kind of match the
I would ask you
shades
to
that are coming out.
possibly to, if you incorporated that with some,
something different than the arcade.
Right, understood.
if you incorporated that with a protruded soldier course or something.
Right. It's a different material,
Right.
different color, and it's different plane, and then something different, something at the top. I think.
Yeah, something like if we could just, I mean, I don't mind the, what do you call it? Drawing a blank in my mind. What do you call the?
We call it.
Cantilevered roof. Or?
That's it. Yes,
Is that what's tied back?
correct. No, I'm having no issue with that. I mean, I think the colors are.
Well,
The colors of McDonald's yellow, and I'm not
right,
so-
and that would probably need to be discussed. We would probably have to taper down at least the cantilevered the roof element piece of
The yellow.
Yeah, to something probably a little softer.
Actually, I don't know what are our yellows. I'm interested.
I don't know what kind of yellows.
Because yellow's kind of yellow in some ways.
Can I come up?
Yeah, absolutely.
come on up.
Please. They've all kind of sandy yellows and such. I don't think
Yeah,
there's
most of them
one
are
that's
sandy yellows.
Yeah, I don't think any of those
So
would
is
fit
your-
in. We'd probably have to look for an exception to find something that's more agreeable.
Is your palette, this whole,
There are a few that have been X'd out. But pretty much this is the palette that we've stuck with.
Yeah, I
Do
don't
you have the
think.
historical one? Who's got the
Yeah, I would think we could come up with something a little closer. If
well, I think we have a little bit more work to do before we fine tune the colors.
I would agree.
Correct.
I would agree.
Yeah.
With that. I would agree with that.
So I would say that when we get to
Especially the
that,
angularity of things. Around those.
Now the brick.
A right angle's a wrong angle.
Now, as I recall, this brick at the water table is the existing brick that's out there right now. So we're just going to match that existing brick.
well, I know color is very important to you. And I might have the option of being able to paint the whole building. But the concept that we have is that if we have existing unpainted brick, a lot of these older buildings are painted brick. If we have existing unpainted brick, and it looks okay.
It does.
We match it.
I would think that would be fine.
So if that fits in with your
Yeah.
palette,
But
that's fine.
I think it's just a fine brick. I think.
Painted brick,
Yeah, I think it's a.
it's a lot more maintenance.
Decently modeled.
And that's- yeah,
It's
maintenance,
not
it's
really-
fun.
So I always like
Whatever.
a raw brick if possible.
It is. We would have painted brick here.
Yeah. See, and then I say, well, I've got to paint the brick there. I would like to see a thin set brick to match, if that would be
I will
possible.
not find a thin set brick to match that. And that wouldn't look good. So if we wanted to maintain the brick below, we could still take the palette that would have it and just paint the brick above. But the thin set brick, there's very little success in making that look right and matching the existing brick. I would say that we would be, most likely, we all look at it together.
Understood. Understood.
Those suggestions help you a little bit?
Yeah, I can certainly work with that. I can come back. I don't know what to do about the roof cap element.
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, I totally
Yeah.
appreciate your
Right.
position, but you just let the corporate people know that we're trying to have our own town identity, and that's not it.
Yeah, right now it's like a hood ornament. It's not an element within the building, and of course, hood ornament type of structures we're not really, it's not a concept
Not very
that we
strong.
have here. It's not
Not present anywhere else.
present anywhere else. It's especially in, I guess, the concept. Even though we're not, I don't know what style we'd really call ourselves because we're not really. a
But I tell you what, this
Williamsburg
is
style or-
something I'm thinking in my head here. I don't like it. I'm just flat out don't like it. All right, and I know that it seems like the rest of the board doesn't either. If we can get some of the other elements that we talked about, again, more of the wrong one.
And
Possibly some corbelling or some sort of a pediment cornice up here. Get rid of just the monolithic, clean lines of this stone. If you, like I said, you could do something a little more interesting on the top edge of here. I use basically something similar we talked about there. As much as I don't want to, we could probably swallow that because again, I know it is important to you and the guys at corporate. But I think
Let me try.
I could probably see myself voting for it. I couldn't speak for them, but if we could do that, I could almost.
Let's see how it looks.
Okay. 'Cause I
okay,
don't
do
like
you
going
have
this way.
the Quarles thing printed out?
They never all.
We don't have that printed out.
All are going like this.
Because we do have a complex that hasn't been built that's been approved across the way. It does have curved elements in some of the roof line that, you may be able to apply something similar just to draw the two together if people are having problems with the monolithic look of this. But, these are all elements that you can look at and then toy with.
That'd be great. I appreciate that.
You can?
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay. Yeah, it gives a view of what could possibly be built, depending on if the builder is going to follow through with it or not. But it's been approved. I'll give you some more.
Would you like me to leave these? Or
They're
do you
the
have it on
same ones
paper?
that we have.
You're okay with that?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Next time, if you can, just bring a rendering of the backside drive-through side.
Yeah, and if you can put in what your concept of the drive-through look would be.
I can do all that. And again, I was trying to get, this was our first meeting, right?
This is the mulligan.
Yeah, this is the mulligan.
In terms of, I think the feedback, we've received quite a bit, and appreciate the time back and forth. I guess we'll look to the minutes would be the only other source of, we're not looking for any kind of other report or anything. I just wanted to, I'm not asking for one, I'm just confirming.
Okay, well,
Or would it be your normal course to put something together on ideas from what was discussed today?
well, right now it was just a think tank. I didn't think anything really needed to be recorded. With sheets, we're at a level where they actually applied with the COA, so now things have got to be formal.
And we're not at that stage yet.
Right.
We purposely have not filed our application yet with, as I mentioned to you, and we've lost Marshawn again, but we're still in the process on the land use side as well, in terms of kind of trying to time things with what council's considering for the drive-through stacking issue. So, okay, thank you very
I
much.
hope the drive-through stacking goes through well, because that is a mess. That'd be nice to see get cleaned up.
Appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's going to be nice.
Just out of one of these, I always see this one better than the person.
No idea on the side.
Okay, I guess we'll continue on with the agenda then. We'll go to agenda item number 5, town council update.
Okay. I really don't have too much. It's, I can tell you, Village of the Haymarket Phase 2 is in process of being built. And in regards to the certified local government that was discussed at council and brought up that our historical redistricting would have to happen. And kind of on the side of it got kind of put to me as to, we had brought it up and had recommended it, and if we would want to continue or do that, it is the council's, I think the majority of council's opinion to do that and do the redistricting. I personally not, but it's okay. That I do not know. It does take a while for the redistricting, zoning, and all kinds of fun
Yeah, you got
filings and
public meetings, and of course you got to announce it 2 weeks ahead of time, so that'll drag out a little bit.
But I have nothing else. Any questions about anything else?
I know I'll go over a lot of the details with the sign concept, but I guess I'll get your interpretation. The next phase is strictly to come up with what it's going to cost, right?
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted to confirm what I was going to be bringing up when we look at our task list. If I can find it. Okay. Any other questions for Kat?
That's all I had.
Okay. We'll go to Planning Commission update, but Ralph's not here, so we're going to have to put that aside. So we'll move on to agenda item 7, new business. At this point, I do not have any new business, and there's nothing on the agenda. So we'll move on. We'll go to old business. Now, old business, let me gather myself together here and find the task list. Cool. Okay. Well, I wish Marchant was here. I haven't talked to him about the bylaws. He was still going over it last I heard. I think it's been bumped for a few things. So right now, I'm going to say the status of that is still waiting on Marchant. I don't know where to go with that further. I will give you more details at the next meeting on where that stands. But truly, I don't think we're in an extreme hurry to come up with the bylaws until we determine if we want to be certified local government. And so these will go hand in hand when that starts to come up. Okay, we'll get to the welcome signs.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Certified local government, that's going to be on the council's next agenda. Y'all might want to talk about that tonight. Kat got some information from Bob, and that's one of the reasons we asked Bob to come up here tonight.
Right, which was
CLG is going to be on council's next agenda to move forward.
that's exactly what I had said.
Well, the question is, are we the responsible party to come up with the historic districts?
No.
That would be the zoning, right?
PC.
I mean,
Your input could be taken, but ultimately PC would make a recommendation to council, and council would adopt it, or choose to adopt it.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is, for you guys, is whether or not you think the town should pursue the CLG.
Okay.
I mean, ultimately, again, that is, again, the council, but we're looking for you guys to discuss it and discuss the merits of shrinking the historical district, the pros and the cons. And that's, again, why we asked Bob to come up here and he's currently educating them about a trademark they didn't know they had. That yellow swoosh thing is a trademark
It's a logo.
It's a trademark logo, i.e. it's a sign.
yeah.
They can't have two signs on the same side of the building. CVS ran into that. So you guys spend all that time discussing the color of that yellow thing, they can't have it if they want McDonald's on the side.
Unless they incorporate it into one signage and shrink it.
Right. So they can't have it the way they drew it anyway, and they didn't know that. So that's why he's educating them on the fact that they do have a trademark on that logo.
And in regards to the CLG thing, I told them that, it was discussed. It is ultimately the town council's decision as to whether we would like to pursue that or not. And we could go from there. Put it back
Right.
on council, and if we think it's something that ARB thinks is a good idea, it's totally up to town council to make that decision if they are going to move forward with that.
Okay, we'll move to...
The council's directive was to have you guys discuss the purview of the historical district as a whole and what your recommendations was. I.e., should we really be worried about what McDonald's and Sheetz looks like? Are they really historical? No. So that's why we put it back on the ARB to discuss, and for Kat to come back in February with y'all's discussion topics.
Right. But it is nice to have some type of committee to work with the corporations to come up with it. So, what we need to discuss is if we do shrink the historic district, do we have the historic district with other type of districts associated with what we regulate? And then again, I don't know if that falls within the certified local government jurisdiction to say that if we consider the whole town a managed district in a sense of its architectural structure, but we only label the center of town historic or something of that sort, will that still comply with certified local government regulation.
Bob can speak more to that as far as what,
What's the question?
the question really is, if we shrink the historical area, district area, at what point, who has ultimate decision-making authority over, i.e. what the McDonald's or Sheetz would look like and their colors and palette choices, et cetera, if they're not within the historical boundaries?
Well, they don't have to be considered within the historical boundaries, but they need to be
They would
considered
be to follow
within
the Ellsberg.
some type of boundary that still allows some type of architectural review control, which we would be delegated to manage, right?
An ARB only has
ARB only
standing
has
control over a historic
historic
district.
district, period.
So you guys would, the ARB would not be burdened with those design requirements or design, color choice of palettes because it's not historical. The ARB is specifically for the historical district within the town.
Now, that's just something with this town? I mean, that's,
No, that's
that's-
statutory.
That's
Yes,
statutory
yes.
for the state.
Okay.
For the CLG requirements, just like the CLG also requires,
Well, it's not CLG, it's Virginia State statute.
well,
What
which
you
trickles
guys
up to the
overrule-
state, the interior and everything else. I think those rules are kind of like built at the top level, right? I don't think they're more stringent at the state level.
No, there is no state architectural, the state, General Assembly passed a statute that allows local jurisdictions to create an architectural review board. In order to create an architectural review board, you have to have a historic district. If you don't have a historic district, you don't have an architectural review board. That's a requirement for having an architectural review board. The architectural review board can only look at exterior aesthetics visible from the street. By statute, they have no authority over anything that's not visible from the street, and they have no authority over anything that's not in the historic district. If it's outside of the historic district, you don't get a swing at it. Design features, color palettes, stuff like that. Marshawn can probably correct me if I'm wrong on this, but that would be more of a would entail zoning ordinances for overlay districts and that sort of thing outside of the historic district, but it would not be under the purview of the ARB. In fact, if it became zoning text, particularly if it was zoning text as part of an overlay district, steer me if I get off course here, Marshawn, it would actually be a planning issue because it would be a zoning ordinance issue. Not, the planning and town council outside of the historic district.
Thanks much, but you are what you are right now, which is the whole town. And by ordinance, you do have the architectural controls that you have now. It sounds like the question, if I understand correctly, is with the CLG, is the entitlements that you get through that CLG certification allow you access to grants, other entitlements that can help restore, maintain consistently that district. But at the size that we are right now, we don't qualify to meet that CLG statute.
And
If we shrink it, then we become subject to the most current statute that Bob's referring to. So that would be if you were to pull it back. I think right now we are what we are at the time we created it. And once we start pulling it back to go to CLG status, and
Right.
changes the ball game altogether. I think what Bob was talking about is Winchester and other areas have overlay districts or corridor districts that do have some basic elements or design elements to it. It's not as perhaps as intense or restrictive as usually you see in the historic districts. They're more of like form-based code or just some general parameters of how those buildings should look. And that's generally what you see in response to like the McMansions you see in Vienna. We have the large lot old Ramblers that are being torn down for the big McMansions, so they do create some form-based code or some parameters. So when Councilman Vice Mayor Tobias is saying, the pros and cons, those are things that you have to weigh. You shrink the CLG and get those entitlements, well then you give up some of the controls and ability to look at some of these other elements. So, but the value becomes the value is what do we value? Do we value these corridors at the entranceways to the town? Do we want to be as restrictive in our review of those elements, or do we want to focus more on the core of the town? I think the way that the town's overlay district says, protect and perpetuate those areas and structures which are historic, architectural, or of cultural interest. So, but,
It's not to say the gateway can't be part of the historic district, because of the way the statute is worded.
it's a little bit different.
You could keep the gateway areas within the historic district because they are main thoroughfares or something. There's some wording in the statute. But what you're going to principally lose, what you're definitely going to have to lose any authority over are the residential areas, generally speaking, whether it's Green Hill, whether it's Long Street, whether it's, Haymarket Station or anything like that, because you can't justify leaving those developed communities, at least I don't think you can justify leaving those developed communities within the historic district because the parameters of the statute don't allow for it. In my personal opinion, the way that we've got the historic district set up right now is open to challenge at any point in time. Anybody who wants to challenge it from outside of the town's core, if they chose to do so, in my estimation, they would prevail rather easily. To be honest with you, it seems like somebody took the easy way out years ago when they set the historic district up. They didn't consider the consequences down the road and said, this is the easiest way to do it, let's just put the whole town in. Chickens come home to roost, and now they're coming home to roost. So.
And I understand that the discussion here is to get a feel for what the council feels is best, right? The whole reason for reviewing whether we want to go certified local government is to get the opportunity to access some of the money grants that can come from it, right?
One of the pros.
Yeah, one of the pros. But does it cost more money than what it's worth? Because now, if you want to go into the certified local government, your board needs to have a licensed realtor. It's got to have an architect. It's got to have a boatload of qualified people on the board, which in a half-square-mile town, you have a hard time finding unless you want to actually pay a salary for that. So, for volunteers. So, that poses that question. It also says we would have to really rethink what we want to consider historic. And then, does that grant money only apply to the historic elements within the historic building? Which means, even though we've opened the opportunity for it, are we ever going to use it?
Well, there are parameters to those.
You could use it right now.
So, for instance, I would love to consider this plot of land part of the history of Haymarket and get the money put out towards putting in a nice parking lot that makes this thing a functional.
Because of the proximity to the Red Rooster and because of the proximity to the Holdfish House, that's not beyond the realm of possibilities. And it's almost a certainty that it would fall within acceptable guidelines. The question is what doesn't fall within acceptable guidelines. Durham's property, the industrial Century Square, most of the neighborhoods.
Yeah, well, and when you look at the zoning of it, an I zone, that shouldn't be historic. I mean, it's pretty much a place where you could create a love canal,
But ARB has applied those standards to those buildings before.
I know, and that's the question here. If we do go through reassessment on determining what the historic district is, that's a no-brainer, right? But
it wasn't a no-brainer last year.
Well, you also had a different representation of the board.
But yeah, you have to get away from that stuff if you have any chance of making CLG work. It also allows the opportunity to do some other things and address some other issues because you'll be able to have two different sets of standards. One set of standards within the historic district, one set of standards without, which will cure a lot of the town's bills with regard to things like signage and certain business uses.
Right. And truly, the board is formed from the council, right? So do we really have a decision in telling you what we feel the historic district is? Well, politely, yeah, you guys give us the, should we say, the opportunity to throw in the dialogue of what it is, but we are bound to your decisions. Whatever you decide is truly how this goes. You know, I'm willing to contribute my efforts into coming up with an answer, but you know, I really don't know where to go from here. If we do want CLG, we definitely need to shrink our historic district down to something that is truly representable of a historic district.
Well, since ARB is kind of what brought CLG to the council's opinion, you know, for their opinion in the first place, I guess since to even consider the CLG, the historic overlay district has to be shrunk. Do you still have an interest for the town to pursue CLG?
Well, you know, with the ARB meeting that John and I attended, you know, one of the biggest points about the ARB existence was mainly formed through truly what you're seeing with the CLG, right? So we threw that to you saying, hey, does council show an interest on even wanting to try and participate in this? You know, that's the question. It's either a yes or no. If it's a yes, okay, where do we go from here? Well, to do it, we need to do these things. So, you know, you guys got to weigh down what you feel. If it's cost effective to rearrange the organizational structure or not. For me, like I said, I would shrink down the historic district because I don't feel that any of the industrial zoning should even fall in it.
Unfortunately, council threw it to the PC for recommendation. Planning Commission will not make a recommendation at this point in time until there is a decision made by council as to whether they are willing to shrink the historic district. Because we're not going to waste, and I don't use that word lightly, we're not going to waste our time, Marchand's time, or any town resources deriving an opinion as to whether CLG is a viable option or not, unless there is willingness by the council, or at least a majority of them, to shrink the historic district, because that's hurdle number one. If we can't overcome that hurdle, there's no sense in expending anybody's time, effort, or money in going any further. It's real simple for us. If council comes back and says they're not willing to shrink the historic district, then our decision on CLG is very simple. No, we can't recommend pursuing it. Same thing with zoning text changes. No, we can't recommend any changes because the historic district size makes it difficult, if not impossible, to enact the changes that you want to make everybody happy. So it's unfortunately sitting on our lap right now, and we'll sit there until council comes back with a yes, we're willing to, or no, we're not.
Right. And all I can say is I'm willing to participate in the meetings, you know, and give the ARB input. Marshall?
Just in terms of, if I could offer some advice on maybe how the ARB can crack it, is you have, go ahead and look at your ordinance, look at your ARB guidelines, and it sets up those matters with which you're to consider, what you need to look at, and it also outlines, also in the comprehensive plan, what the town values. And so I think what we kind of alluded to here, that most of it talks about our gateways and our walking downtown. Outside of that, as Bob had pointed out, there's some financial benefits to doing this. Talk about residential neighborhoods that have some redundancy, that already have HOA guidelines that are pretty oftentimes more restrictive than our own guidelines. So it's basically looking at your charge, looking at your criteria, looking at your general statements and your guidelines, and then say, okay, does our district as it stands right now meet those parameters? And it sounds like in some instances probably not. I think the other thing the ARB needs to look at is, and I need to confirm this, that we sent up an email I think once before about CLG, and it basically said, and you alluded to this earlier, let's say we do shrink it and we go to apply for certain grants. I think what's generally accepted is that we've tinkered with most of our buildings to the point where they are not original in character of the period. Now, it's not they're still of an interest to the town's history, but in terms of the criteria, and this is something I worked with when I was in Middleburg, and there was a bank that was being looked at, and it had to have certain architectural elements that are specific to the period. The integrity of the building had to be there in order to qualify. So maybe that's something we need to look into too, to say if we even shrink it, those buildings that are left that meet our criteria or would meet the criteria, is there integrity there? I think the only ones they're going to come back with is the museum and probably St. Paul's Church. Now, we have contributing resources. In our comp plan, we have contributing resources. I think there's like 24 buildings that are addressed that say these are what we consider contributing resources. The balance of what your ARB guidelines look at is the compatibility of your new construction with that. So if you were to shrink it to the downtown, what that would do is it preserve your existing structures and then make sure any new building within that envelope is compatible with that. And that's, I think, what most of you are trying to discuss tonight. You know, how does the McDonald's and the sheets fit in with the architecture of the town? But anyway, sorry, I'm rambling, but I mean, this is those kind of values you have to weigh and then make that recommendation back to the council.
And if we shrink the historical district, then we really would not have a say in whether McDonald's puts up a box or not.
Well, I think it goes back to what we said earlier, is that you would have to more or less kind of divide it up. If you have your old and historic area, and then you have an overlay district for your corridors, then within those corridors you have some basic design parameters.
So we could have a tiered system. Bob, from what I understood, Bob was saying earlier,
Yeah.
it was an either-or. It was either historic district and we had purview, or it was not historic district and we had no say whatsoever. You're saying that there is a certain tiered...
I think he's right in his
It would
statement.
all be within a historic district, but within the historic
I'm
district you
sorry,
can
now
have
there's some
tiers.
distinctions. In other words, what would, I think for the CLG status, it would just be that core district. What I'm saying is there is other tools in the toolbox to have some architectural control of those corridors. It just wouldn't necessarily be under the same purview as the CLG designated area.
And who would have that overview? It wouldn't be the ARB, because all we would
I think in
have
some
is
instances
that.
it's the ARB, in some instances it's under the purview of the commission, but under specific, what's that? Okay.
Because as I understood it, we would only have control over what was the then defined shrunk
architectural or
historic district.
historic, yeah.
I'm going to probably speak a little too. I know there's a way to do it. I just don't have the answer for you right now.
Yes, and I know there is that overlay district, but that overlay district is in no way controlled or managed by the ARB.
Yes.
There
I'll have
is
to go look.
another,
I can probably go in and find my.
Right, but you create guidelines for the overlay district.
Correct.
And the town, i.e. the town with the help of their boards, would create those guidelines for development within the historical overlay district.
And then,
So would you have all of those people coming to you every meeting for 6 meetings in a row trying to figure out which color mustard to use? No. But you would have the initial and further clarifications of the guidelines for that overlay district. In other words, you set up an initial set of guidelines, and if someone comes in and builds something and we really didn't like it, then we can always go to modify our guidelines for the overlay district. Council looked at this last year in 2010, 2011, and at that time, it was decided by the council at that time that shrinking the historical district, they didn't want to do it. They wanted control over everything to the minute, grain of rice that was served on a plate, for gosh sakes. What we're trying to say now is that really necessary? I don't know how many meetings you guys have already had with Sheets or how many you plan on having with McDonald's. But, I mean, they're a corporate entity. I mean, they're huge. They're not some small little, at some point in time, really, how much say do we really want over McDonald's and Sheets when you look at the money that they bring to the town, dragging this on 6, 7, 8 meetings to find the right color of yellow or whether or not a canopy is allowed.
well, this being our only second meeting with them.
No, I'm saying dragging it on. That's what I said. I don't know how many meetings you have had, but I'm just saying, for example, this allows you to not continue to have meetings of that nature if you had an overlay district that has guidelines in place.
Right.
and then we handle it at the staff level and then just go through PC and town council and.
I think we can address the concern by statute. The way the statute's written, town can delineate one or more historic districts adjacent to such landmarks, buildings, and structures, or encompassing such areas or accompanying parcels of land contiguous to, so not just the historic buildings themselves, but arterial streets, which is an important distinction, or highways, as designated pursuant to Title 33.1, found by the governing body to be significant routes of tourist access to the locality or to designated historic landmarks, building structures, blah, blah, blah. So you could cover, in theory, your historic core and your arterial access corridors. Your arterial access corridors would be here, 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 and here, and that's it. So you can still get your gateway coverage in theory, but what you're going to lose is this, probably all of that, most of that, all of that, and a good bit of this. But you're still going to maintain your core, and if it's designed, if it's drawn that way, you still maintain your gateway control because it's your arterial access for both tourists and it's your only access to the historic districts. It's just a question of what the town council wants to do with it and how broad or how small they want to make it. So, but that will be all that you will have the purview over by statute. If you want to.
Marshawn, you had said?
No, I'm sorry, I missed the discussion. I found the thing what I was talking about. I think we're all on the same page. This was from Winchester. It has what they call a corridor enhancement district. And just reading from the intent, this overlay district is intended to protect and promote the aesthetic character and functionality of major tourist access corridors leading into the designated local and national historic Winchester district. So in the way reading through this article, as we had mentioned, it comes up with a set of pretty distinct measurable standards, and the planning department actually reviews that against those standards and issues the permits. It is then the historic district that then goes under the purview of the more detailed review of it. So it allows, it says,
It seems like by statute you could do it either way.
yeah. So I guess if the ARB is inclined to go that way, we can probably sit down and figure out a way to skin the cat. If that's the way you want to go.
Right.
So I guess my concern is if we do create a smaller district than the CLG, we still may be, our Achilles heel may be what we've done with our buildings today. But we can certainly inquire about that and see if that's possible.
Right, I would be, that's just as a discussion, I would be concerned that we do all this and the benefits from the CLG are not there because they're too restrictive. So, we do all this stuff, we set ourselves up for these grants, and then we find out, oh, well, to qualify for these grants, you have to have a certain amount of originality in your buildings, which we don't have, so we did all this for nothing and we lost our control. And we've given it away for nothing. I would argue that, yes, whatever you do, whether it's done, whether you jettison the ARB's jurisdiction over the residential areas, that's one thing. But I would really implore you, the council, to maintain the ARB's authority over the sheets, over the corridors, because you start talking about how much do we want. Well, we welcome that because as far as going back and forth with these large corporations, CVS, for example, they wanted to slap their standard everyday yellow stucco building right there in our corner, and this board was the only thing that prevented that.
Well, what's the difference between this CVS and the one that is twin in Gainesville that was there first?
What they proposed was more like the one in South Riding, which is just a big stucco
The one on 29, you mean?
thing.
Yeah.
The one on 29 is mostly faux pon, like the fake stucco, and the sign's it's internally lit, and it's about 3 times the size of it.
Right.
Well, driving past them, they look almost identical.
Yeah.
So,
Well, there's some similarities, but the CVS themselves afterwards came to us and said, hey, they were really happy with their building that we pushed them towards. And I think the same argument here is with the McDonald's is a perfect example. They want to just come in and put their standard everyday box
Original
in.
plan that they.
The same one you see in Manassas, same one you see in Wisconsin, Malibu, everywhere, Florida. And from my understanding, what this town has been talking about for the past 10 years, that's not what, the town wants to have its own identity and not be just another pit stop off the highway where people run and get gas, go run to McDonald's and leave. We're looking for a town, an individual identity for this town. And
Uniqueness.
A uniqueness, correct. Which would all be lost if not for this board's jurisdiction over that corridor. So now whether it's done, again, through the ARB or through some sort of a
Well, it's an overlay.
overlay district is, as long as the town maintains some jurisdiction over what goes in and what it looks like. It's it's that balance between, property rights and the well-being of the community. And I started out as a real big property rights guy, and I still am. But I've also seen people, property owners come in and just throw something really horrible up and then leave town. And then we're stuck with it. The citizens of Haymarket are stuck with it. And so that's kind of our charge here is to see what is built is beneficial to the entire town.
Just for an example, for some of these standards they have is building orientation, site access, parking and drive-through, the roof pitch, breaking up of long facades. I mean, so this less review district, but it has still some parameters that create some scale and some character. New parking to the side or to the rear. No equipment shall be placed in the rear or roof elevation. So it's just kind of these general, very what do you call it? It's not open to subjectivity. It's very clearly
Very defined.
What's that?
Defined.
Yeah, very defined standards that a reasonable person can interpret and issue the permits for. So, but I think the advantage to that is you do create some distinction. Right now we're trying to create a distinction for ourselves from Walmart. I think at some point in the future, and I think with this new Sheets building with the CVS, we do create a very defined western corridor. In the future, as the fairgrounds comes underway, I think maybe one example would be is if you were to shrink to just a corridor, only those buildings at Front Washington Street would be under the review. Anything on the fairgrounds parcel, would example, that's way back in the back up against the highway, we wouldn't be under that purview. It's simply those buildings at front, the corridor and the like. So, different ways to skin it.
So to try to not drag this on much longer, what do you really want from us then? I mean, has this dialogue kind of given you an idea of where you want to go as a council?
Yeah, I think that your comments earlier kind of answered it before the great big discussion on overlay districts and everything like that, but the fact that it is something that we can look at as far as shrinking the district and figuring out a way to maintain some semblance of control over the main thoroughfare, if possible, like Marshall just said. So previous boards were 100% against it, wanted control over 100% of everything in town. And there's been, in years past and still currently, there's been a feeling on council that, the ARB doesn't necessarily need authority over a community that has an HOA, for instance. Especially when an HOA has been established. There's been instances in the past where folks come in from Long Street Commons to get fence applications taken care of. And Long Street Commons dictates that this is the fence you will build. And, it's sometimes referred to as a board-on-board fence. But yet, our ordinances don't allow it, so it's an exception to the rule every single time. But eventually, somewhere down the road in 1989 or 90, when Long Street was first built, those guidelines were approved by the council at the time, as far as what their HOA covenant said. So there's certain things that the ARB, in some minds on council, doesn't need to control anymore, because HOAs out there who are supposed to be making their communities look good within the main community of the town.
And they're more stringent.
So, and even more stringent sometimes than what the ARB guidelines are. So, and again, it also comes down to comments made to council by applicants about how extremely difficult it is to do business with the town because of continued meetings about different things that either ARB or PC, has, quote, held up the process. Even though the process is a multi-step process, the applicant's perception thereof is being held up. And I think there's some people on council who are willing to try to expedite the process sometimes to make ourselves a little more business friendly. So, streamline for that. If we had a corridor that said this is what you're allowed to do, okay, McDonald's, make sure you fit within this corridor, boom, done. Versus, again, just based on tonight's discussion, we don't really like your red sheets. Can you change your red a little bit? Your yellow mustardy color needs to be toned down a little bit. At the end of the day, it's yellow. Whether it's yellow mustard or yellow whatever, it's yellow. So I think there's some people on council who want to limit the responsibilities of ARB a little bit. And this would be one method to do it if everybody was on board, the PC, the ARB, and the council to strengthen the districts. So yes, earlier your comments were helpful.
Okay. Then I guess we'll move on then. And any other comments you guys need, we can work offline. You can just email me directly.
Perfect.
Okay, we'll go back to the sign, welcome sign task. In December, the council told us to move forward. We need to come up with pricing. So our next steps need to be come up with what designs we want to throw at each of the identified gateways, and even the optional ones we can price just so that we do get a list of pricing. I need some direction on who wants to help with that. Were there other ideas that were thrown out or that you had in mind that were not within that package that I threw out there, since I did have some options for each one? Did you just want to get the metal signs that I kind of drafted up in there as a initial cost estimate?
Yes.
Yes. The question, yes. I think you did a lot of work. I think it was a great place to start.
Yep.
Okay.
Just do kind of a price guesstimate based on your packet. So I wish I could help you with it. Unfortunately, I do not have
Okay.
time to work on that with you.
So for the next meeting, I will try to work with Jennifer and Sherry to find some point of contacts to get estimates and true reality check from DDOT on what's allowed to go by the side of the roads and what can't hang on a light.
Right.
To get a realistic cost estimate, as well as a, yes, we know this concept can be put in place without any VDOT denials. Okay, that's the next step for the welcome signs. This must be old. Is the PC training communique still on here? I thought I closed that out. You did pass that along for us, right, Marshawn? The Planning Virginia having their PC training this month. Was there an interest in the PC to try and attend, or?
I think there was. I'll have to go back and look at my notes.
I'm going to consider that closed because I think it was we're getting to the point where it's OBE since it is January, and for all I know, it's this weekend that it's being held, right?
I think so.
It was held last week?
Okay, we can go
So
then.
Yep,
he went?
closed.
Cool, that's closed. Then we'll consider that closed. I think that addresses all the tasks. Bylaws, I kind of skimmed over those. That's a second priority on you. What I'd like to do is table these until we find out what we want to really do with the certified local
Okay.
government, because that'll totally change our bylaws.
Yes, it would.
So, yeah, let's table this for, what, April? We'll revisit on the April. Okay. And that covers all the tasks. So, now we're down to the last agenda item,
I'd like to motion to adjourn.
adjourned. Any seconds? Got a second?
Fabulous.
Then you're adjourned, I just want to make.
Well, let me close it up. Do we got to vote on adjourn? We don't have to vote on adjourn. Okay, well, I call this meeting adjourned at 9:02. Now we're done.